Most of the edtech solutions out there actually focuses on the top 5% of the schools that are very affluent, but there's 90% of all the schools out there that are being neglected.
The second issue, the kids that go for these classes, they're just copying down the code and there's very little innovation.
And these are the skills that differentiates us and gives us our sense of originality compared to AI.
So I thought to myself, okay, how can I fix these two problems? We have had people that say, oh, you guys are young, it's your first startup, don't be too upset if it fails. But the younger you are, the more leeway you have. Once you start, be shameless. People want to support you, but you need to give them a reason to support you.
We didn't have the scale, we didn't have the resources to actually allocate into that market to expand the market further. So the way we got into our current 14 countries was...
My name is Kai. I'm the founder and CEO of Stickum. So Stickum is an edtech startup using Chopsticks and 3D printed connectors to make STEAM education more accessible to everyone. We won $1 million USD, winning the Hult Prize. They call it the Nobel Prize for students.
And right now, we have over 15,000 students from nearly 200 schools across 14 different countries using Stickum, spanning from rural schools in Uganda to top schools right here in Singapore. Hi, I'm Adam, co-founder and executive director of Stickum. My path into robotics actually didn't come easy. When I was in primary 1, I tried to get into the robotics club in my school, and they had this selection test. Like, why do they have a selection test? But they had a selection test because the resources that they had were limited. So that means they could only engage a certain number of students. And it was very small. It was less than 5% of the total school population. So I went for this selection test and I didn't make it. And I was just a kid. And I was really, really sad. And I went home and told my mom, I didn't make it for the selection trial. Maybe I should go and join another club instead. But my mom, being a very caring mom that she is, she went to the principal the next day and begged her to please let me in to the robotics club. And if it wasn't for my mom, I don't think my journey in robotics would have even begun. So this pain of access to STEAM education and opportunities like robotics was something that was hard-earned because of my mom. This is still when I was very fortunate to be growing up in Singapore with a decent education system. But what about all the schools out there across the world that does not even have a robotics club?
So around 5 years ago, when I was 17, I started working as a robotics teacher, and I was teaching all kinds of different robotic systems, whether it was Lego, whether it was Firo, it was all kinds of different programs. And that's where I kind of realized that these programs are, first of all, they're very expensive. They're very, very expensive and inaccessible to majority of kids and families. The second issue is that the kids that go for these classes, they're just copying down the code. They're learning how to build a robot, and there's very little innovation. There's very little excitement about learning. So I thought to myself, okay, I know that it's inaccessible, and I know that for the kids that have access to it, it's very boring. How can I fix these two problems? So I looked around my house. The idea was that I wanted to design a low-cost STEM education kit, significantly cheaper and more accessible. So immediately, the moment I drew out the first sketch for Stickum, I remember texting my co-founders and I said, hey, I have this crazy idea. We're gonna build a much cheaper version of traditional robotics kit. Do you want to join me on this?
Kai just met me in Maker Lab and he just shot me a message. Then he was like, here, I have this idea. I want to control this robot made out of chopsticks from my phone. And I want it to be as simple as possible. I don't want to install apps. I want like the quickest way possible. And he's like, can you do that? This sounds like an interesting project to me. And so just like that, I was in.
From idea to MVP was only a few weeks. We were trying to get the MVP up as quickly as possible in the cheapest and least painful way. I mean, it's a hardware product. You have to go and test and validate it.
Our first prototype was actually an Arduino Uno board. So it's a pretty standalone board, but it doesn't have any functionality to it. To create an actual robot, we needed motors, we needed connection, and those were not present in the Arduino Uno. So what we did was we stacked the shield on top of the Uno. Just like that, it gave it Bluetooth functionality, and then we stacked the motor shield on top. So that gave us motor functionality.
We literally 3D printed the connectors very quickly. We will take different parts, assemble it together.
So altogether, it was like one very clunky looking box at the start.
And we went to our parents' friends' kids, like the houses, and we just said, hey, here's this Stickum kit, go and test the idea. Go build whatever you want. And then we will see them build like a bow and arrow, houses, attack helicopters. They will build all kinds of crazy stuff. And also seeing where they got stuck. Because when the kids are building, you'll see that sometimes they're like there, or like they're scratching their head, or they're a bit confused about why something doesn't work. We're able to take that confusion and address it. Whether it's a product change or whether it's changing some part of our materials or maybe in our instruction slides, we're able to iterate and make it slightly better.
The reality right now is that 99% of all the STEAM products out there assumes that schools already have specialized teachers, like specialized STEAM teachers, coding teachers, robotics teachers. But unfortunately, 90% of all the public schools in the world do not have such specialized teachers. This is a market that you can tap on. So we started thinking about how can we enable existing teachers within the schools, regardless of their background, to be able to conduct STEAM education on their own. Back then, we realized that we didn't have a deep understanding of the problems that the teachers are having. The teachers are thinking about, wouldn't this put on extra workload for me? Is this another equipment that I have to take care of? There's a lot of things that weren't necessarily helping the teachers. So we started designing curriculum for the teachers, lesson materials, making sure that the onboarding materials is so easy and so simple to use.
The most important part is the connection, the wireless connection functionality. So there's two main technologies that we could have went with. One was Wi-Fi and the second one was Bluetooth. But Wi-Fi requires like a username and a password, and you want to eliminate that out of the equation. We don't want that clunky behavior. We just want people to maybe scan a QR code, for example, or just press a button and they'll be able to control a robot. So that's why we went with Bluetooth.
I mean, both teachers and students should not be stuck on the technical aspect of like, oh, this is not working. That should be something on the side. The main part should be the innovation and the problem solving of why something works and how can we make it work. Means that now, when a teacher or student uses Stickum for the first time, it's like magic. They're like, wow, is that it? Like it works already?
So that not just the teachers, but the students can use it and build the robot within the first 10 minutes. I think expanding beyond your certain region is a conscious choice that every startup needs to make. Some startups are not ready, some startups are. For us, we actually tried to expand when we were not ready. That's why we only had schools, maybe 1 or 2 schools in all these countries using Stickum, and that was it. We didn't have the scale, we didn't have the resources to actually allocate into that market to expand the market further. But that also doesn't mean that it was all a waste, because throughout the 1.5 years where the school was still using it, we were able to identify what are the true needs of this country. What problem solution fit can we actually provide using Stickum to these schools or this government or this country? If you want to expand overseas, you firstly have to understand what problem in this society or country does your product actually solve. Because initially, we thought that we can replicate the model that we have in Singapore into all the other countries. That didn't turn out to be true, because the problem that we're solving for the schools and teachers in Singapore is slightly different. And you go to Vietnam, it's a slightly different problem all over again. So while the main core value that Stickum provides to all these schools is the same, the way it is presented to the teachers or the way it's used in the schools is going to differ. And having that knowledge is very essential. So the way we got into our current 14 countries was purely through opportunities that we had. When we went to international conventions or events or competitions, we'll meet all these teachers from different countries and we'll share about what we have.
They see the value in Stickum in their own country and they say, okay, I think I can bring this to the schools in my region.
And they became our first entry to their market.
And I think the cool part was the fact that Stickum works in both a really, really well-resourced school in Singapore and also a random classroom around the world.
So how we got our kids to Uganda is we met one of the teachers there, I think it was in Chile. And every time we go for these international conferences, we'll bring kids because we know there are people that we currently cannot reach. They'll want to bring these kids to their schools. And this teacher kept asking us, please, can I use your kids? I want to bring this back to my school so that I can test it out and see whether the students like it. And we gave them 4 kids because of that. After that convention, for about 6 months, we didn't hear anything from them. But suddenly the teacher texted us saying, hey, after using your kits, we ranked first in the country for coding. I was like, wow, that is an example of the real impact that we're creating with Stickum.
So it's just seeing this scale up to many, many different countries and many types of different schools and education systems. I think it's just amazing and it makes you very, very proud.
It's a very internal sense of validation that helps you understand that what I'm doing is actually making real change, even in countries like Uganda, a rural school in Uganda.
I think you have to manufacture your own luck. You have to put yourself out there. You have to maximize the number of opportunities there are for you to get lucky. I think as a young founder, one of our biggest struggles was balancing our school life, or for some parts of it, like our military life. Literally only like 3 weeks ago, I finished my national service, but it's always felt like I was full-time building Stickum. First of all, I have ADHD, and I declared my ADHD, which means that they don't let me hold a gun. And they assigned me into the media team. And being in the media team allowed me to bring my laptop into camp, which means that every day I can just work on Stickum in my own free time. So the whole 2 years I was really lucky. My co-founder, Jing'an, was a bit less lucky because he got assigned to a unit where he had to march and he had to wear like heavy gear and everything.
I would generally tell them during this period of time, I would not have access to my phone because I'll be marching and there's basically no communication during that time. So I'll just tell them, whatever you have, just dump it to me in messages and I'll just take a read at it whenever I'm free. So I would count myself among the more fortunate ones where I at least have a couple of hours left in the bunk. So what I would do is I'll bring in my laptop and I'll work into the wee hours of the morning. I shouldn't really be saying this, but by right, we are supposed to sleep at 10 PM, but I'll work till like 12 AM to like push out updates for Stickum. Without me, Stickm's software part will stop functioning and that part really falls on me. Like, who's to blame when your curriculum website fails? It's a bit tiring at times, but that is the nature of the job.
So we've been quite lucky because I think everybody has been very supportive of us starting our business or starting our startup. We haven't really met any true like haters. We have had people that say, oh, you guys are young, it's your first startup, you know, don't be too upset if it fails, or don't worry about making it too big because it's just your first idea, right? But I think to them, maybe they see that because we're young, the idea might not really take off. And I mean, 5 years later, we're still building it. Education itself has a pretty long tail, so it's not as hot and as quick as like an AI startup in Silicon Valley. I've been in the education industry and I know that there's an issue I want to solve. I think if I thought about it as like, I want to do a startup, what should I do, AI or healthcare or anything? I don't think we would have been around as long because when the times get tough and it's not something that you're truly passionate about deep inside, I think it's quite hard to push on versus something that you care so deeply about and things get tough, you're like, okay, this is a small tough thing. I think I can push through it.
Right now, sending kids to Uganda would double the cost of our kids. That will make it very inaccessible, especially for the public schools there. So logistic cost is one of our biggest hurdles. For example, tornadoes, natural disasters, or national holidays that happens in different countries. These are things that sometimes pop up at random and that really makes supply chain a very challenging area to manage. And the best way to overcome it is to create demand, enough demand within the country so that we can have a production space within the country itself. In terms of actually scaling our production, it's really just about repeating what we have here into more units. So imagine this as a modular production space. So if we need to double our production, we just double what we have here. So that's how we plan to scale in the future. For Stickum, we want to grow rapidly because we feel that the faster we grow, the more students we are going to be able to provide access to STEAM education. So within the next 5 years, we want to reach at least 1 million students across the world, regardless of where they are from.
And we were very clear from the start. We didn't want them to use Stickum and become an engineer or become a scientist. Because if you want to do that, you can go to school. What we want to develop with Stickum is actually problem-solving skills.
STEAM education is more than just doing well in maths or sciences. It's about developing essential 21st century skills like creativity, critical thinking, complex problem-solving skills. And these are the skills that differentiates us and gives us our sense of originality compared to AI.
We don't really talk about AI much. It's more about having kids building stuff, going out into the real world, instead of always being on their tablets or their phones, watching YouTube or TikTok, but instead being able to actually understand how the world around them works, instead of just, oh, I'm in my own little bubble, I don't need to really care about all this. Until I graduate, then I need to find a job. But hopefully we can turn them into someone that cares about real life problems and feels like they have the initiative and also the skills to be able to solve it by themselves.
The proudest moment is when seeing my Control app being launched and children actually enjoying and using the Control app to its fullest potential. And most importantly, when they use it and they say, wow, this is so fun, I want to play with it more. You can see the look on their faces when the workshop ends. They kind of have that sense of sadness that the workshop could not go on forever. And that's the thing that keeps driving me to build a better experience for them.
I want them to be able to have the understanding that they have the power, they have the skills to be able to start innovating things for their society.
For those of you that have an idea or have an inkling of an idea, don't sit around and wait for it to actually fully form. Just start. Every single thing. You can use Lovable, you can use all kinds of AI tools to generate an MVP, start talking to people, start testing it. But the younger you are, the more leeway you have, because the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the more life starts to hit and you're like, oh shoot, I need to get a job, I need to support my family, my parents. And once you start, be shameless, put yourself out there, build publicly, ask people for help. So you can reach out to anyone online right now. LinkedIn, Instagram, even Gmail, you can find people's contact anywhere. People want to support you, but you need to give them a reason to support you. And whether they see your email or reply to you or not, I don't know, but it's worth a shot.
So the education sector, to me, is a very contradictory sector. Most of the edtech solutions out there actually focuses on the top 5% of the schools that are very affluent and that are very well-to-do. And there's very good business reasons for doing that. But there's 90% of all the schools out there, they are being neglected. And for all the edtech founders out there, I really hope that you focus on the true problem that you're solving. What is the real value that you're providing to the teachers or the schools or the students that you're serving? Because if you crack that, and if you crack that for the 90% of the schools that exist in the world, your market is pretty unlimited.